Yo, what's going on YouTube and welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte and we are taking a look today at the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Montreal Canadiens with a breaking trade. So, the Montreal Canadiens acquire Michael Matheson and a 2023 fourth round draft pick in exchange. The Pittsburgh Penguins acquire Jeff Petry and Ryan Poehling. So, the deal overall, it's kind of a weird trade. A lot of the people in the comment section of, on Instagram posts and on Twitter and on Reddit and stuff, you guys were pretty neutral. It was either major, it was kind of two extremes, right? It was either, well, these are fair trades, both teams lost, both teams won, right? It was one of those sentiments, or, Kent Hughes really screwed the pooch. And I don't think that's really the case. I think this is one of those deals where Michael Matheson actually had a pretty good season last year for the Pittsburgh Penguins, all things considered. I watched him in, what game was that? I think it was Game 5 in the New York Rangers series at the Garden, and he looked awful. I will say, in that game in particular, he did not play well. He at least gave up 2 or 3 of those goals in that game, by himself. But other than that, he did have a pretty good season considering that contract he signed in Florida, and Jim Rutherford kind of buried them with that contract. So Michael Matheson isn't a terrible player in the sense of what he was, say, 2, 3, 4 years ago. With that said, Montreal picks up Matheson, who is a bottom pairing defenseman who is very much overpaid for that spot. And they also acquire a fourth round pick in this year's draft coming up in 2023, which is a very coveted draft. So that's pretty good in that sense for the Canadiens, is they acquire more draft capital. Now here's the thing. The Pittsburgh Penguins acquired Jeff Petry. Now Petry's a pretty good player himself, but the problem for Jeff Petry has been his health and not being healthy enough. So when you look at this trade from the perspective of the Penguins, the Penguins didn't lose this trade either, because you look at the deal. You're looking at a deal where Matheson and his $4.875 million cap hit go to Montreal, which is a win for the Penguins, right? So they lose that big ticket that they have. And not to mention, that still has 5 years left on it. Oh, good Lord. So that is a sinker of a contract. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 more seasons left on Matheson's deal. Yikes. Meanwhile, Jeff Petry's deal is more value. It's $6.25 million. So Pittsburgh's actually losing money out of this situation. But it's also only a 3-year deal. There's 3 years left on it, other than 4, which is on Matheson's. Which, if you consider, you put the dots together, in 3 years from now, Sidney Crosby will be a UFA. So that, in that sense, they will be saving $5 million in that season where they would have to re-sign Sidney Crosby. So in that sense, if you're looking long-term picture, that does matter here for the Penguins. Not to mention, they also pick up Ryan Poehling, who some people are kind of on the fence, right? Montreal Canadiens fans said, well, Ryan Poehling underachieved. And, the thing is, when you look at the Habs' center depth, they don't really need Ryan Poehling anymore, right? You've added Kirby Dach. You've added, guys like Juraj Slafkovsky to even play on the wing. So Poehling doesn't really have a spot anymore. And you consider that maybe Slafkovsky and Mazar, Mazar probably making the team in another year or two. There's just not going to be much room. And Ryan Poehling is up for a new contract after this coming season. And I don't think the Habs are truthfully thinking long term about Ryan Poehling. It just doesn't seem to fit in the cards with what they're trying to do. He's a former first-round pick back in 2017 of the Habs, 25th overall. He's 23 years old. And this guy reminds me a lot of another Teddy Bluger. That's what the Penguins are getting here from Ryan Poehling. The thing that I think Penguins fans are going to like about him, he's a big body, right? 6'2", 204 pounds. He's from Minnesota, from Lakeville, Minnesota. So he's, I guess you could argue, a little bit closer to home, if that means anything. But I think the Habs and the Penguins win this trade, right? They don't necessarily lose. Again, it's more the cap between Matheson and Petry. But if I had to decide a winner today, I think I'm going to go with the Penguins because I think Petry is better than Matheson 1-for-1. And I think I'd rather take Poehling over the 4th-round draft pick. I think there is some potential on Poehling. And again, it's not really a loss for the Habs because Poehling would have ended up in Laval next season. There just wouldn't have been room for him as they've kind of changed things around there. And like I said, overall, both these teams are looking to make some transactions. I'm going to talk about in a second. The Penguins made a trade later on in the day with the Devils, so we're going to talk about that as well. Guys, let me know, who do you think won this trade? Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.